welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, V
and Sean. We interview people in the creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. And psych, we're on Newgrounds now, so we got a little question and prompt from Newgrounds today.
And if you're just tuning in from Newgrounds for the first time, hi, what's up? Today we have with us SAM SPINA. Hello.
Hello.
Hey. I'm so excited to have you on the show, Sam. Because you're another comic artist, doodler who ended in animation and a fellow.
You ended here.
Comic.
I know. It sounded like, oh no, am I
no.
gonna end here? No.
Yeah. This is your shallow grave.
I feel like that sometimes. It's
Oh,
gonna
really?
kill me, dude. Every time I get a new episode, I'm like, this is gonna be the one. Takes me.
Okay. I will say, I think the first time I ever came across your work was through your regular show, working on regular show comic. Anybody who's listening to this episode, definitely check out Sam's 3 comics about being a storyboard artist. First on regular show, then on Infinity Train, and then Apple and Onion. They're all like so amazing, and I don't know, it's very detailed.
They're good insights into what it's like to be a storyboard artist on a show in a fun comic way.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give what it's really like to be a board artist on a TV show.
The stuff they're afraid to tell you.
Yeah.
I love how you describe that every episode is that same kind of like roller coaster. It's so true.
Yeah, that's why, I haven't made one since Apple and Onion, and I've wanted to. I've worked on like different enough shows that I feel like they would be worthy of a comic, but at the same time,
do you think that the creators on that shows, when you don't make a comic about working on their show, they're like, it wasn't worth it to make a comic about working on our show?
I never thought of that.
Or is it like, oh, it wasn't really hard working on our show, that's good? Or like, yeah, there's nothing dramatic enough to make a comic about.
Totally. Yeah, maybe. I never thought about that, but I definitely have. I worked on Big City Greens. I feel like I could make a comic about that.
Yeah, that's funny because we got so many prompts about Big City Greens, and I didn't realize that you worked on that show, and that's also like a. But before we get too deep into any of the shows, I wanted to kind of ask you: Did you go to art school?
Yeah, I went to school for graphic design at the University of South Carolina. So not really art school. I went for illustration. I was an illustration major for a semester, and then they got rid of illustration as a major. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll do graphic design. It's like pretty much the same thing. But I learned about graphic design and really fell in love with like typography and stuff. So I really enjoyed it. I liked learning about graphic design in school.
Yeah, I wanted to know, because then what was it like graduating from school in graphic design? Like, did you find some jobs in graphic design before hopping into animation, or what was that timeline like for you between graduation and your that phone call that you
right
drew?
Yeah, totally, you know the story. Right after I graduated college, I moved to Denver, like 2 months after, and immediately, sent out resumes everywhere, like big, stupid, like overly graphic designed resume, like full packages to like every design studio that I could find, just like there was a lot of like corporate headquarters in Denver. I remember specifically the Sports Authority was there, if that's even a store anymore. I was like, dude, I would love to do graphic design for the Sports Authority.
A dream.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, you are a sportsman a little bit. You like your sports.
Yeah, I do. I wasn't really thinking about that at the time, but that would have been cool. I do like sports though, but I feel like that kind of came up when I moved here a lot more. So yeah, of course, nobody called me. I didn't hear anything back. Nobody got back to me, and I like did the thing where I'm like, okay, well maybe I'll just like apply to the art store, and then it's like, okay, maybe I'll apply to like the cool bookstore that I like, and going like further and further down the list. And my lowest point of like applying everywhere, I would just spend like I couldn't find a job for like a month or something, which was like tragic. I didn't have like any money like in this fresh city. I just thought I could like find a job really quick. I couldn't even get a job at like a grocery store. And at my lowest point, I remember going to a group interview for Subway, and I like I remember taking a bus for like a really long bus ride, like figuring out the Denver bus system for the first time to like this park in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, I like dressed up and had like a portfolio.
They make us fight with footlongs like swords.
Yeah, but it was like a full event. There was like hundreds of people there to like work at Subway.
No way.
And I went through like various. It was like an all day thing. Various like people I had to talk to, and I never heard back. I did not get the Subway job. But I eventually found a job at a Italian restaurant pretty close to me. And I worked there for like 5 years. And at the same time of me graduating school, discovered comics. Like I never read comics growing up. But one of my last projects was a comics project for my illustration class. And he made us like go check out some indie comics from the library at school. And I remember getting blankets and being like, oh my God. Yeah. This is like my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I related to it heavy. I like grew up in like a super like Christian household too. Had a very similar Craig Thompson story. But yeah, that totally like, comic books aren't just superheroes. Wow. And I like, fell in love with comics and started like found out what a zine was and like started making my own comics and zines and stuff. And then I really just like dedicated my entire life to just like every waking moment I was doing daily diary comics. I did daily diary comics for like 3 years straight, never missed a day. And then I switched to like, a few times a week for a few
Where were
years.
you uploading primarily? Or were you just for yourself?
Blogspot. Dude, I was big in Blogspot. That was my medium of choice. I still feel like that was the golden era of the internet for me.
Oh, Blogspot. Interesting.
Yeah, I love Blogspot.
I feel like you got pretty big on Tumblr too.
Oh, really?
Right? I don't know.
Tumblr was always so fleeting to me. I never really liked Tumblr that much. I know it's like very big with people. It's like still a thing, right?
I think it came back a little bit because people didn't know what to do after Twitter got weird.
Yeah.
But...
It's like a niche kind of like platform. I feel like I started following people that were not in animation on Tumblr to just kind of see how they're using it. And okay, we're not going to get into the full YouTube of it all just yet, but I do watch this channel, Strange Aeons, and she talked about how Tumblr is like a writer heavy platform, which I didn't know, because for me it was always for artists, but apparently text posts do really well on Tumblr.
Interesting.
So that's why I was wondering, because like your comics are like, especially your like working on a show comics, like I would say it's like at least 50-50 in terms of like drawings to writing.
Totally. Yeah. Honestly, it's like I kind of feel like in Denver I never got any design jobs. I got like I actually, for the Italian restaurant that I worked at, I did do their logo and their menu and stuff. That was my big design job that I got. They still have it.
That is so sweet.
Really?
I check every time I go back. But what was I gonna say? Oh, I also did like a few like illustration comic things, and the school, Denver University, hired me to make comics about whatever gallery show they had in like the art school. And I feel like that is my perfect situation job, where I like am sent somewhere and then I could like make a comic about it, like in almost like a journalistic type of way, which is similar to like that's how I think about the storyboard comics too. It's like I'm just like a journalist, I'm here to like
that's so
tell
funny
because
it's almost like one of those like, I don't know, like a YouTube vlogger or whatever, where a company might be like, hey, we have this like park opening up, can you make some like vlogs about going, but you did it in comic form.
That's what I want to do.
Funny.
I want to be an influencer for mini comics. Do they have those? Yeah.
Have you ever done, this is kind of left field, but have you ever done some of these like court drawing things? You know how like there's like an artist at like trials?
A courtroom sketch?
Yeah, I feel like
that would be funny, dude. I'd come up with like some pretty funny drawings for that.
Courtroom comic artist. We don't even have a stenographer anymore. It's just like you're just like taking liberties on like cutting out a bunch of dialogue because it makes a better comic to do that.
Make him look like really unhinged and guilty. Draw him with like blood on his hands and stuff.
Because you were talking about journalism, so that kind of popped into my head. That would be pretty funny. I mean, it's open to the public. Listen, if ever one day you don't know what to do, just hit up the
Wow, I just noticed your guys' drawings are very nice. Good shading.
That's nice. Thank you.
Did you look up Sanjay and Craig, or you just know how to draw them?
No. I looked them up. There's no.
Cool.
I know kind of like their overall shape, but there's no way I always get the bottom of his face wrong. I always draw him like a circle, and then when I look him up, I'm like, oh, he's more like, I don't know how you would describe the shape, like a pear, like a upside down pear. No.
Yeah, it's like a raindrop going the wrong way.
Yeah. So you made some comics for your school, and then you were uploading like on Blogspot a lot, and you were working in the Italian restaurant. And so do you know how did that phone call come about?
Yeah, so while I was just like making comics, I would save up money and just travel to any like zine fest or comic book show across the country, and like SPX was like the big one. Have you guys been to SPX before in Maryland?
I have not.
Not yet. It's on my to go list. I really want to check it out. Everybody's telling me to go. Yeah.
It's really fun because it's in a hotel, and it's kind of like it's in Bethesda, Maryland. So you pretty much everybody that goes there stays in the hotel. So it's just like really fun hangout weekend. But in Denver actually has a very thriving indie comics zine, mini comic scene, and I made a lot of friends there. And the local used bookstore, Kilgore Books, started publishing this guy Noah Van Sciver's comics, who's like this amazing comic artist, very prolific. And then they put out one of my books, so I like became friends with them, and he eventually helped run SPX, so we would go to SPX every year. But I was always like going to like shows all around. I went to like, fly to like Columbus, Ohio, and all these places I'd never been to just to go to like a little zine fest to sell like 4 copies of like my $3 comic or whatever, like total whatever. But it was like a lot of fun. And I eventually did one in San Francisco, and somebody was getting one of my comics, and they paid with a Nickelodeon card. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? Like, you work at Nickelodeon? Like, I never...
Wait, what does that mean? Like, here's my card, call me?
Yeah, it was like a scout person. Her name was Juliana. She's really awesome.
But that's how they paid for it? They were like...
No, I think it's the credit card.
Yeah, with like the company card.
Okay,
like,
I thought that they had said like, I work at Nickelodeon and I hope this works as payment. I was like,
it's like, let's do a trade, but what they're trading you is not another comic, it's just a business card.
That's so funny.
I was like, are you kidding me?
No, yeah, it was like a
that
Nickelodeon
works as
business
payment.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have taken it. But yeah, then she like told me about the Nickelodeon Shorts program, and I submitted right away. Like, I went home and immediately pitched, because they were just like accepting anybody for these like 2-minute Nickelodeon shorts. I pitched her something, she was like no, and then I pitched her another thing, and went through. So I got to make a Nickelodeon short. That was my introduction to animation, and I literally didn't know anything about animation when that happened. And I always think like, what did Nickelodeon get out of that? Like, for me, it was like the coolest shit ever. I remember they paid me like $7,000, which was like the most money I could ever think of. And
you were like, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
I'm a thousandaire.
Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, they like flew me out here once. It was just like the coolest experience ever. Like I did
they
a lot of
you, dude?
I wish they slimed me. Yeah. They did make me take my shoes off and take pictures of my feet though. Have you...
What? Is that a thing?
No, I'm just kidding.
No,
have you watched
making that
any
joke.
of that? Yeah.
Dude, that shit's
I
crazy.
was like, is there like some Nickelodeon lore I'm unaware of?
Yeah.
Well,
They tried to get me to like put my foot in my mouth.
That is a thing. That there's a new documentary that came out that talks about weird stuff that happened at Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
But like the biggest thing is I didn't realize how much of it was foot themed, and it's so weird looking back at all that stuff.
Yeah, I totally watched iCarly and stuff. I loved iCarly.
I
was
know.
way
I
too
know.
old.
I'm glad that no one slimed your feet or whatever when you were there.
It's so crazy that like you went from doing comics to a full-on 2-minute short. How was the process? Did you animate it all? Whoa.
Absolutely not. No, not at all. It was like a full team. It was crazy. Like
Whoa.
At the end of the day, like I did some like a couple backgrounds, and I remember they sent me props to do. They like sent me a list of props and like the scenes, and I very distinctly being like, okay, they need a wrench, so I just like drew a wrench and sent it back. They're like, but it has to like match the scene. I was like, what are you talking about? Like I had no idea about animation at all.
That's so
Here's what a
funny.
wrench looks like to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's literally.
Can we
what
see
it
the
is.
short anywhere? Like, or is it like kind of?
I think it's still on YouTube. It's
What's
called
the short
Hole.
called again? Oh yeah,
Hole.
yeah.
HOLE. Let me see. They do
The
like
short-
take it.
The
on
short
and
is
off.
red. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. You cannot tell that it's your first time making an animated short. Like when you
It's
watch
because I
it.
didn't
It's
make it,
good.
dude. It's like a bunch of like somebody else boarded it. Somebody else did the character design. I mean, it's all based on my drawings, but it's like it was like a bunch of people worked on it. It's crazy.
Did you pitch it as like a full comic, and is that how you pitched it?
I love making. I still to this day love making pitch packets. I feel like I'm very good at making pitch packets. So I did make like a full. There was a bunch of comics in the pitch packet with the characters. And stuff.
I'd love to get into that. Maybe like we can leave that for a little bit later. But I have a feeling you have a unique approach that is more like comic-y, and that I'm really interested in how you approach that. But we can leave that for later for right now.
Oh sure. Yeah, to finish this long-winded story. But I at the same time, like as that was going on, I was like, dude, I've made it. Like I'm living the dream. Like as I was working at the restaurant in Denver, I was still, like calling Nickelodeon every once in a while to talk about this short that was happening. But then I also just got like a cold email from JG one day that was like, I want you to take a storyboarding test. Like he was like, I'm the creator of this show, regular show, and I want you to take a storyboarding test. And I was like, what the hell? But he found one of my comics at Meltdown Comics here in Hollywood.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
RIP. Because I also used to be very diligent about mailing my mini comics to a bunch of stores.
Oh, nice.
Which is something I don't do anymore. But yeah, so I would like travel pretty often to do these comic shows and mail my books out. And I was pretty prolific. Like I would come out with like a few mini comics a year and mail in places.
I love that. Like we haven't heard the story before of like an artist not only posting online very frequently, but also how diligent you were with doing all the shows and mailing them to shops, because I feel like this is like a lot of work. Not like, how did you look up all the shops? Were these shops that you had been to, or did you like Google comics shop Los Angeles? Like what was your process?
Yeah, kind of both. There's this guy named Tony Shenton, the real mini comics people from 15 years ago will know who this is, but he was this guy that lived in New York, and if you got in his good graces, you could mail him a box of your comics and he would send it out to a bunch of stores too. Like he just had this like network of stores. And he would like skim off like 5 cents off the top. Like he would, I was like, dude, you can have more. You're like doing a lot of work.
That's so true. Wow, that is so sweet. Oh my gosh. And did you guys meet at a convention, or was it just all online?
Yeah, he I don't think maybe I met him at like SPX one year or something, but yeah, he was just a guy who was just like passionate about getting people's books out. But I did have a friend that actually worked at Meltdown Comics, like a very distant friend, like friend of a friend of a friend who I knew worked at Meltdown, and I emailed him to get my stuff in there.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
it's really DIY. It reminds me of sort of how punk bands like do like records or cassettes, or like, you know, like we would drive to a few local stores and see if they would like buy, you know, 4 tapes or whatever, and like just put them on the shelf. I don't know, like it reminds me of that like kind of it's a scrappy DIY thing.
Hell yeah.
That
and it's not like you were trying to you weren't trying to like get a record deal from that. You're just trying to like get your stuff out there. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and probably no one will buy them in that store, but it is fun to be like, if you go to this store, there's, you know, you'll see my record or whatever.
Totally.
And there's also this thing, like, so I was at WonderCon over the weekend, and this kid from San Bernardino, was like close by, was like, hey, like we opened a comics cafe over there, and we have bands playing, and we're looking for people to like
Birdcage
come. Yeah, Birdcage Comics.
Yep.
And I was like, damn, this is so cool. I was like, I love that when people do things like that. I'm like, this is just so cool, you know, like, I don't, not to sound like cynical or jaded, but sometimes you could be like in this industry and you look at everything burning to the ground, and then this kid comes in and he's like, me and my friends, we have a comics cafe, and you're like, wow, there is hope in the world. It's so nice. There's like, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, that's another like name. JT Yost, he started Birdcage Bottom Books like forever ago, and he published one of my books and some other, you know, people's books. But he was also like a distro guy. Like he was really good about mailing books out to shops and stuff, and also would take like, you know, 5% commission or something crazy. So he would mail me checks every once in a while for like $6 and stuff.
I can't believe that he would even like remember to do that. I feel like, because I once put a mini comic at Skylight Books, which I love that place.
Yeah.
But I kind of had to keep inventory because they have so much going through their shop that I think that they weren't keeping tabs on everything. Yeah. So I feel like for somebody else to do that for you, it's actually huge.
Definitely.
And I mean, like, getting a check for $6 it must be so weird as $1,000.
I know, man. It's like, what am I going to do with this?
I wouldn't even throw this out.
Totally.
No.
But yeah, anyways, after JG sent me that email just out of the blue, I like immediately like did it super fast, sent it back to him, just like waiting to hear anything. Didn't get back to me for like a couple weeks, and I messaged the producer and was like, hey, did you like see my test or whatever? And he was just like, oh yeah, it's good, we'll let you know, or whatever. Just like a quick.
Can you talk about the test a little bit? Just for, you know, listeners who might not know about a storyboard test. Their test was also a little different than how other tests might work.
Dude,
and also, for listeners, you can compare and contrast it with Sean's version of the test, which was much later in the production.
That's true. That's also true. It might have been the same test, though.
It might not be the same test.
It was the same test.
It's the same test?
I mean, we started at the same time, right, Sean? I started on season 7.
I think you might have come on just a tiny bit before me, but I think that so it might have been the same test. They needed me to start so quickly that they only had me take the writing portion of the test, not the storyboard portion. But I'd love to hear what the storyboard portion was, or what you did.
Yeah, it was the storyboard portion. Isn't super interesting. It was just like a tiny little clip of the of an outline, and we just had, I think they wanted like 10 pages of thumbs, which a page was like 4 drawings, and then like 3 pages of cleanup or something. So like, it honestly wasn't that bad, but the writing portion of the regular show test was really interesting, and it actually, like, something about that test really stuck with me, and I still think about it like all the time, and I wonder if you're thinking of the same thing. But it was, they made you, it was just like a bunch of like the characters with word bubbles and stuff and prompts like, what are they saying in this situation? And one of them was Mordecai and Rigby like talking to Benson, and they had speech bubbles, and you just like wrote like whatever, something. It was like, write something funny for Mordecai to say, and then you turn the page and it's the same drawing, and it's like, now make it funnier. And I was like, damn, like that, seriously, it's like, that's what you got to do. Like, you write down your funniest idea, and then you can always make it a little bit funnier. And I've like honestly thought about that like every day since that test.
Wow.
No, it's a good and also I think that test has some good examples of ways that you can almost like do just a little bit of research sometimes to push a test a little bit more. Like there was a part of the test where Skips is trimming a hedge, and you have to draw what hedge shape Skips would be trimming it as. And I looked up like, you know, Skip's long lost love, or like, is there anybody from Skip's past that or whatever, and I found an old story. I mean, really, it is hard to be expected to watch through 6 seasons of a show to catch up. So sometimes you just do a little bit of research. And then I remember when I was in the meeting with JG, he was like, I can tell you really know the show. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, like a little bit, but like, it's little things like that I think that helped. But I loved that worksheet. It makes me want to make like workbooks like that for people, for like exercise,
that is
like joke exercise writing books or something.
Dude, that is so good. Creative block murder.
Yeah, dude, I mean, we could do it. Yeah.
That would be so fun. Yeah, just like a bunch of because that test, like when you guys talk about it, I do think it's so great how concise it is, but how much it showcases the person who takes the test, like their ability to be creative, pretty much. That's really
But yeah, so I sent the test in, and they like, I just feel like they kind of brushed it off, and I was like, oh, okay, like that was a cool experience, whatever. And I honestly like didn't think about it again. Like, it was out of my mind. Like, too much time had passed. And then my wife and I, she was my girlfriend then, we moved to Atlanta actually, because we met in South Carolina. She always wanted to move back south. So after being in Denver for 5 years, we moved back to Atlanta. I got another restaurant job. And one day while I was at the ATM, like putting my tips in the ATM or whatever, freaking wad of cash going in the ATM. The producer for Regular Show called me. It was like 2 years later, and he was just like, hey man, like we got a spot open, like you want to come on? And I was like, what? Like, really? Like,
this is how this works?
Yeah, I fully like forgot about it. Like, not forgot about it, but it's just like, it's never gonna happen. And yeah, it was like 3 weeks later, they needed me to be out there, so we like drove across the country, and that was it.
That is so. What I love about this story is that even though you took the test and it didn't like happen right away, it might still happen. And I do think that sometimes, like, you know, it's easy to get like defeated and like down in the dumps that things are never gonna like pan out. But like, I don't know, that story is a testament to like, you know, you might just not work out like right now, but it doesn't mean that later down the line there's not going to be like a spot open up for you.
Yeah, there's always hope.
Man, wait, so you guys had just moved there though? So
no,
how
we were there for like
you?
A year.
Okay, so were you like, surprise, we're gonna move again, like, and it was chill?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my wife was,
nice.
You know, it's a big deal. She was very happy.
Well, yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's always hard when like you get news that is like, hey, one person needs to move, and then we got to uproot our shit and go to a completely different place to make it work. But
Totally.
I'm glad that you did.
Mm-hmm. You two, did both of you guys go to school for animation?
Yeah. I went to UArts in Philly.
Oh, cool.
I wouldn't say it's the most impressive animation school. It was like more geared around experimental animations. So like like I was taught how to animate with sand and clay and stop motion and paper and on like all sorts of. It was definitely more geared towards like, hey, let's work in a cafe and make an experimental indie film and submit it to some festivals every 4 years than necessarily working in the industry. I think that things have changed there a lot, and I think that there's some rad teachers there now that have changed that. But yeah, I think at the time I was just, making do with what school gave me the most money to get into, I guess.
Cool.
And then V's fancy.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel always kind of like silly saying I went to Gobelin because everybody's like, "Whoa, you went to Gobelin," and I'm like, I don't know. I just was not. I don't like because the rest of my classmates were all so amazing and good that I was just kind of like, whatever, you know? I even
Yeah.
just feel like
Everyone who's listening is like, V, shut up.
no, but I mean,
like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I feel like there's this thing where because Gobelin when I went was very focused on like you got to be a great animator to go work at DreamWorks as a 3D like a CGI animator or like a Pixar. Like that was kind of like the goal, right? It was like to get people to be like CG animators in these big studios. And I was just watching I was watching Adventure Time. Like I was really into like TV. I was like, oh, that's what I want to do, where it's just like, and because it's TV animation, the animation's not as impressive maybe as like a Pixar. So everybody else was just kind of like, oh, okay, what are you watching? Kind of thing. And there was a little bit of that. So I definitely felt like I was like, oh, not the black sheep, but I was like, okay,
You're the gray sheep.
The gray sheep. But like I was saying earlier that I wanted to pepper some questions from the listeners like throughout the interview because I think we have some really interesting questions from our followers on Instagram. Cornelia Doodles asks, Sam, how did you get this fantastic at what you do?
Well, I just drew
Give us all the steps.
And yeah. Trying to think of a funny way to answer this. Pretty boring. Probably what everybody says, just...
I mean, you probably made a comic about how you did it, right?
Yeah, totally. Just actually, you know what? One thing that really helped me grow, helped me grow a lot, was doing that daily diary comic. Because, just giving yourself a goal, a goal like that you, stick to. It's, my first year of doing those comics. If you look at my first one to my last one, it's just, such a crazy difference. So I would say just be dedicated. Force yourself to draw every day, even when you don't want to. Give yourself a project like that.
I think that's so great. And you talk about drawing daily. That kind of falls into that next question from our listener, Carls_art. What's your daily drawing schedule?
Schedule. I do not keep a rigorous schedule like that anymore. But yeah, back in the day when I did keep a rigorous daily diary comic schedule, I always have a little pocket notebook in my pocket at all times, a little field notes or something. I love
those little note. I love a good little notebook.
Totally. Yeah, I've had one on me for 20 years or something. And yeah, it's if anything funny happened, any little idea you have, whatever, write it down. And then before I went to sleep, I would draw a comic about something that happened that day. But now it's I'm a big sketchbook person, so I always have a sketchbook on me, near me. And I try to, I just happen to draw every day. It's not as much of I don't have to force myself anymore. Except for work, I guess.
so what would you say is the secret to taking things that happen and trying to find the humor in them, enough to make it something that you feel is worth drawing? Or maybe do you find the mundane stuff even more interesting to draw? That's also, and maybe it doesn't have to be a joke. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Totally, yeah. I think that's more of a personality thing because I love diary comics and I feel it's such a unique medium. There isn't anything that that's like that really, where it's autobiographical but so immediate. Even if you were to write a diary page, it's not as because it's for yourself but it's also for other people to see. It's weird. I can't really think of anything else that's diary comics, unless somebody made a diary cartoon, but even that would take too long or something.
So did you start off just letting it be what it is, and then as you got better at writing jokes would make their way in? Is that sort of the
I think I started with jokes because that's just my personality. But there's like a lot of people like Carrie McNinch is like one of my favorites, and hers is more like a diary. Like, this is what I did today, the steps, and it's like kind of like encompasses her whole day. Whereas, do you guys know John Porcellino, King Cat Comics? Yeah, he's like one of my all-time favorites, and he has a thing where he like really appreciates like the tiny little moments in life, and I think that's like pretty beautiful, where he'll just like focus on a leaf or something. It's like his comics are like poetry. And then there's somebody like James Kochalka, who I'm more influenced by, like American Elf. And so for me, it's like it was always finding like one funny thing, little moment that happened to me. But when I was doing them daily, that's when you get the full effect of like, they wouldn't all be funny, you know. Now it's like I only write stuff down when something funny happens. So it's a little less like a diary in that way. It's just like funny things that happen to me, whatever. But yeah, that's something else that this is kind of in that same vein, but I always try to instill in like students and stuff. I just talked at my college last week.
Oh, nice.
That you can't really teach like being funny or like that sense of timing or whatever that little spark is that makes like comics good. You just have to like do it a lot and kind of find your own voice, you know, like
your own way of being funny, or maybe your way is not being funny, and that's also okay. Yeah, there's lots of not funny comics.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever felt that. I'm just gonna talk from my experience just to kind of give context, but like I feel like for a long time I would often try to give myself goals like this, where I was like, oh, I'll draw 1 page a day, or I'll do a big story, or this and that. And there was a moment I started to realize, like after drawing all these comics, I was like, oh, my comics are just not very fun. Like sometimes they would be like interesting, but then I was like, oh, they're not like really engaging or fun, or at least that's what I was thinking about them. Like if you were in that position, how would you push yourself to get better at being funny, I guess? I don't know if that makes sense. You know, if you notice that there's something lacking in you're doing it every day, so you're finally having enough material that you're noticing something's kind of wonky. Like, how would you go about fixing that?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because it's like I'm very confident in saying that, like, even if I didn't have a job where I'm drawing all day, I would still be drawing all day, you know, just because it's just I feel compelled to, you know. So I feel like if, like, what's the purpose of that in that question? Like, if you are thinking you want to be funny, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's just not how I think. Like, you kind of just got to find your own voice almost, like, especially for comics. That's what makes comics so great, is that they could just be anything, and they're just so personal, and there's no barrier to entry, you know. It's just like whatever you come up with is what it should be, honestly. But if you're like trying to make yourself funnier to get a job in like animation or something, I don't know, I kind of feel like is it wrong for me to say that that's like the wrong idea or something?
Yeah, I like that. I like to hear what your point of view is on that. Like, yeah. I wonder, you know, like, I like that you said that. I think it's very interesting that, yeah, maybe like trying too hard to fix something that you feel is missing in your work is maybe just not the way to go.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who also like try to fill their portfolios with like, oh, I don't have like an action thing, I need to have an action board. Oh, I don't have this, I need to like fill that gap. And it's like trying to do everything. I feel like that's less important than just trying to like get your personality out there, whatever it is, because that's what is gonna make people interested in your work, you know, like instead of trying to kind of be like something else. Like, yeah, even like trying to find a job in animation, honestly, like that's how you would like get on a show, is it's more your personality and like your tone than like your drawing abilities, I think, and whatever else people think that it takes. Does that make sense? I'm just babbling.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's also it's something that we haven't heard a lot. And I think it's something that is really good to highlight, like leaning into your voice rather than trying to spread yourself thin, trying to fit in every box.
I do think that there's something to be said about experimenting with what type of humor you're using, because I'm not going to expect that everybody's already fully cooked. I'm speaking as somebody who I can remember a time when I was not funny at all. And I worked on it for many years. And
really, what do you mean by work on it though?
I worked on it, and I tried really hard to be funny and failed a lot.
Every day Sean would wake up and look in the mirror and be like trying out different jokes.
I would like ask people what's funny. I would try to quote things. I was like trying to figure out, like, when somebody laughed at something, what was it that they were laughing at? What style of and then not only that, there was a point in time where the only way I was able to be funny was to be mean. And then I realized that to make cartoons, it doesn't, it almost, that style of humor didn't lend itself to making cartoons. So in a way I can sort of relate to this question that, like, the style of humor that I had was wrong for the type of cartoons that I wanted to make. So how can I find a way to write jokes that aren't mean, that fit this style of cartoons that I want to make? And that you might not be fully cooked on that yet. You might have to, like, you know, like how would your style of humor work writing a cute joke, or a, you know, like, are you the type of person that makes a lot of references in your cartoons and that's your joke style? Or so I think that it's worth playing around with, in the same way that, like, stand-up comedians go up and they just, like, do stand-up comedy for a long time, and probably at the beginning they're just doing what they've seen other people do, and then eventually maybe they realize, like, oh, I just need to, like, tell a story that happened to me and say it funny, and that's my thing. So yeah, I agree with your take partially, because if somebody's not funny at all, I mean, it takes a long time to turn that around. Maybe that's not their thing. Maybe they shouldn't have their whole career depend on them being funny if they're not funny at this second. But yeah.
Here's another question that's kind of like that, but ask a little bit differently. So I'm going to kind of start from experience as well, just so that it kind of gives context. But I was kind of working on the short with Nickelodeon, and I did a full board, and I had all the dialogue and everything in there. And then one of the notes I got was like, "Oh, punch it up," and then it was so broad. And I remember
they just said punch it up.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, just punch it up." Like,
punch you up.
And then for me, I was just like, "Oh my God!" Like, so I was like, "Oh, I guess this isn't funny enough," or, you know, then you spiral and all that. But, like, imagine you're getting this note, or, like, I don't know, punch up the scene or punch up this dialogue. Do you have any kind of ways to go about that, like, if that's a note that you get?
Yeah, the regular show workbook. How would you approach doing that?
Totally. Yeah, that's like exactly that. Just, like, going through every line and trying to squeeze out anything you can. But that is tough to do that to your own. Like, if you were writing a script or something, like, because you've already, like, made it as funny as possible. Like, it's so easy to punch up other people's things, but yeah, whatever you're handing in is probably, like, as punched up as you can make it, honestly. But yeah, just go through and find add more, like, fart jokes, I guess.
Do you think about joke density? Do you think about just, like, hey, like, this is a joke, but could I word it funnier? Like, I'm assuming there's a lot of different ways to do that. Do you find that if you have too many jokes, it makes your big jokes not land as much, so you try to, like, make the big jokes count, but, like, have more anticipation before that? You know, like,
yeah, totally. I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't think I'm, like, a stacked joke person, and I think personally my favorite kind of jokes, and the jokes that I like to make in comics and cartoons and stuff, are more like just little, like funny little things that the characters do. Like, sure. They're less, like, written, you know what I mean? They're more just, like, funny little faces and things. Like, Yeah, I can't think of a good way to describe that, but
It's like an acting and mannerism a little bit
Yeah.
more.
I mean, the whole thing with like any type of joke or trying to be funny at all is just like doing something that somebody's not expecting. You know, that's like kind of like what makes anything funny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could. For me, it's just like certain acting could be that, or if it's just like a line that's just like coming out of nowhere, like what the hell, or
I feel like you
callbacks.
have a lot of confidence in your personal storytelling and joke telling style to the point where it's almost like you giving advice about how somebody else does that might be a little harder because you don't think about it that much. Like I feel like
think
you
that's
already
true.
do what you do and you just do what you do.
I
that's all
actually
right.
found that out. If you wanted to talk about pitch packets again, because like
Yeah,
something that
sure.
I learned about with like that Nickelodeon short was the executives were always like, okay, but like what makes it funny? You know, like why is this funny?
Interesting.
Because I think all that stuff just like comes so like naturally to me, I guess. Like the thing that I really have to like think about when I'm like writing a story or something is the actual like storytelling part and like the deep meaning behind everything. So I feel like in my pitch packets they used to just be like very like more like serious, because it's like the funny stuff is easy and it comes later, you know, like
Interesting.
make anything funny. Yeah, exactly what you just said, Sean. I think I just am incapable of thinking outside of myself.
No, and I don't mean it to like.
No,
I'm not
it's
trying to like
true.
call you out or anything, but I think it's a testament to how sure of yourself and your process you are. Is like you don't necessarily think all the time about why am I doing what I'm doing. I do want to talk about sort of some pitch packety stuff. Are you
Yeah.
down to get into a little bit of that now? What
Sure.
if we went to a new page? Would you
Yeah,
be
let's
down?
go to page 3.
Would you be down to talk about or just like roughly draw out like a little bit of how you think about pitching or laying out like a pitch packet maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to
Well-
use something as an example to reference or something off screen, you can. But I'd love to, like, how do you think that making comics has influenced how you tell the story of a pitch? Like how you introduce us to this world that you're thinking
Totally.
about?
Yeah, I think it's like actually there was a really good packet that I used to have from somebody who like talked about that specifically, and it was like you need to like set up the location, like the big like overarching like just kind of like the log line of what the show's about, like it's about 3 kids having fun or whatever, and then like get into the characters, because the characters to any story are the most important elements of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for the character page I would have like, you know, draw like the character really big doing something funny and then draw like a tiny little description, and then underneath I would usually have like a 4-panel comic or something that kind of shows their personality somehow, where if I'm remembering from the whole packet or my whole short from Nickelodeon, the pitch packet, the main character is like, he was pretty much like me, like arty kid, but he was like, his whole thing was he like saw the world differently, so it would just be him noticing something that the other kids didn't notice. But yeah, I feel like that is, you can like describe a character forever, but you don't really know that character until you see them doing something, which is, to bring it back to diary comics and why I think comics are so amazing, is like when you meet somebody and you become friends with somebody, it's not like you do a bunch of research on them first and like figure out who they are. You know, you just hang around them and like see, like they act weird and they pick up stuff in a funny way, and it's like you see their quirks. You know, that's like what makes a character like feel real and deep and rich. So I feel like that's just easier with comics.
So you draw like a little sample 4 panels at the bottom of like them interacting with somebody.
Yeah, oh, you guys are doing it. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm not even looking over here.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
And the thing is we wanted to go over to a new page just in case you wanted to show anything in particular about how you think, but I also don't want to put that pressure on you to be drawing.
Yeah.
So we will try to translate whatever you say as best as we
Cool.
can,
No,
so you
that's
can just
it.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then I would just have like a character page for all the main characters, and then maybe like a splashy page where it's like a group of all the secondary characters, and just have little like blurbs coming off like this kid's allergic to everything or whatever. Like one little thing.
So it might be like something like this where.
How do you think about characters? I know you said that you like the fun little quirks in people. When you create a character, are you kind of more of like the just like inspiration strikes me kind of person, or are you just kind of like, oh, I remember when somebody did this and that, or like, oh, I want to, like how'd you get excited about a character, I guess?
Yeah. Usually all of my ideas just stem from like a joke where it's just like something like kind of dumb. And then I kind of like shape a character around that. And I'm trying to think of an example. Like a lot of my comics, I made this comic called Stick Dirtly where I thought it would be funny if like Johnny Appleseed went around planting sticks instead because he thought they grew trees, but it didn't do anything. And just kind of like wasted his life doing that. So that was like funny. The whole premise for that character. And it's like what makes him compelled to do that. Like he thinks he's doing this grand thing, but he's just putting sticks in the ground. And like it was actually a very smart comic about what art is. Because it's like you're kind of just like, for me, I'm like filling up sketchbook pages that nobody's ever going to see and stuff. Like,
by the way, I just wanted to take a quick moment to tell everybody who's listening, definitely check out Sam's website because your sketchbooks they're like fucking amazing. They're incredible. You have so many of them. And I was just like scrolling through your website and I was like, the page layout is so aesthetically pleasing. Your style is so interesting. And it's just, I don't know, when I think of like kind of like the sketchbook with like a capital S, I think of like sketchbook like these, where it's just like, so, I don't know, it's exciting. Like you have so much going on in there.
Like you can tell what your brain's up to.
That's awesome. That really means a lot to me. I feel like my sketchbooks are like my greatest art form. That's where all my art goes into, like my truest self. And that actually, like, going back to like what you're saying, I feel like I did really work on having good sketchbooks. Like that's something I've been working on my whole life, is to like have a good, nice sketchbook. And that, I feel like that's similar to like why I liked graphic design too, was comics and storyboarding. Even it's kind of like this culmination of a million different things, like writing, drawing, composition, and there's like design elements and stuff too. And I feel like it all comes together for me perfectly in sketchbook form. I love like the pages and.
Do you ever grab one of your old sketchbooks or like a random sketchbook, like flip through it and are like, oh, that's a character right here? Like, do you ever get inspired from your old work in that way?
I plan that. Like, I'm like, one day I'm gonna like look back on this sketchbook and like remember this like really great idea I'm writing down now, but I hardly ever do. But when I do, like usually it's like when I'm moving and I'm like picking up on my sketchbooks, I'll like flip through one and be like, oh, it's like I used to draw so much better. That's always like the thought.
Dude, I love finding old sketchbooks and like when I have a sketchbook, I'll write down just like phrases that I think are funny. Totally. And like without any context, stumbling across those phrases is always hilarious, because I'm like, I don't remember writing this. I don't know what I thought was funny about this. It's just like maybe it's like a crazy drawing that I can barely understand, and then like the most obscene crazy sentence. And I always like stumbling across those, I guess, those almost those nightstand like dream journal kind of entries where like you're in a manic state and you're like, oh, I have to write this down, it's genius.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's like it takes me like 6 months to fill up a whole sketchbook, and there's always like 1 or 2 pages that are like the golden pages in my sketchbook where I'm just like in that like state where I'm not actually thinking about what I'm doing, but I'm just like fully locked in, like, and zoned out at the same time, like hitting that Goldilocks zone where it's just like that's my perfect drawing state.
So you handle sketchbooks in a very different way than a lot of people do, where you're very public with your sketchbooks. And a lot of people keep their sketchbooks very private. And I always remembered growing up, there were two kinds of artists. There was the kind that when they were drawing, they didn't want anyone looking over their shoulder, or like they didn't want anyone to look at their sketchbook. And then there was the artist that was like, oh yeah, you can look at my sketchbook if you want to. And
that's me.
Were you always this way, or did you start like what got you into liking the aesthetic of a sketchbook page as like its own form of art to display?
I think it's just because like my biggest like inspiration, I feel like throughout my whole life has just been my friends, and it's just like I've always had like super creative friends, really lucky in that sense. And one of my like best friends in college, like we would just like look at each other's sketchbooks all the time. So really it was just like, you know, just trying to make my friend laugh and
cool.
stuff like that.
That's very pure. That's a good reason to do it.
Yeah. And one other thing about like being, I think I'm like deceptively like open as like, you know, because I do like diary comics and I like show my sketchbook pages. But the thing about that is like I only show what I want to, you know.
Sure.
It's kind of like best of both worlds, because people think I'm just like, you know, so free and like whatever, but it's very curated, you know.
You know what's
I'm telling
funny?
my own story.
Every time when I was reading your comics, I was like, you draw yourself as like someone very neurotic, and then you come, like when I meet you, every time I see you, you're very calm and like composed, and it's so funny. Like you draw yourself as this like neurotic and not angry but like stressed out person, and then you come off as like completely different.
I'm like, no matter what, in any situation, I'm like fully wringing my hands under the table. Like, I'm keeping it inside.
Yeah, the drawings are also so funny. Like the way you draw expressions is just so good.
That's really nice.
I think that one of the most interaction I've ever gotten on Twitter was a hot take that I gave a while back about sketchbook pages, because I had been seeing videos of people flicking through their sketchbook pages and it's like full finished paintings on every page, and it made me mad because I'm like, that's not what it's allowed to be like bad. Like you're allowed to have bad drawings in there. It's allowed to be messy and cluttered and weird, and I did this ranty post about like all the people that like, you know, post stuff like that, make it look like to people that are learning that like if your sketchbooks don't look like that, then you got to like rip every page out of your sketchbook because it has to be a perfect finished work of art. Now that being said, I don't think that yours feel like that. I think that yours still feel like sketchbook pages, but they are just like nice and they're nicely curated. But I have had opinions about sketchbooks before.
I do know what you mean.
That people called me very gatekeepy about sketchbooks, which is a funny thing.
So funny because you're saying the opposite. Because I know the sketchbooks you're talking about, where it's just like full on acrylic paintings. It's not even just a color. It's like full on like
it's like they're doing like full works of art that are finished in their sketchbook, and I'm like that's not a sketchbook.
I know what you mean for sure.
That's a finished art portfolio.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I never pencil anything and then like ink over it in my sketchbook. But I do that a lot for like my comics and stuff, like. So it is, it's a different feeling. I feel the same way, honestly. It's like, why put so much effort into that, you know? But I do spend hours
at the same time, everybody does it the way that they're gonna do it, and that's fine. I don't know why I got so mad but I had watched like it was just another one of those videos of like somebody flipping through like just paintings for a whole sketchbook, and then all the comments were like, my sketches look like shit compared to this, and it's like, and so I made a post that was like everybody post a bad drawing from your sketchbook. Like I want to normalize like you're supposed to do bad drawings and work through it, and like your sketchbooks are supposed to look sloppy and weird, and like that's okay.
No, I think, I don't know, I agree with you on that, Sean. I feel like, I don't know, we're both kind of like doodlers, so I guess our sketchbooks are very just not like, my sketchbooks are not good. It's not that they're not good. It's just like
all
there's a
matter
lot
of
of like
perception, though, because
Yeah.
there's going to be people that think every single drawing that you do, even when it's a sketch, looks really good, V. And probably the same for me, probably the same for Sam,
Mhm.
just as people that draw all the time. And that makes sense. So there's going to be people that are like, you're one to talk, Sean, every drawing I've seen from your sketchbook, like you don't even use pencil anymore because you stopped using pencil to be sketchy and you just do final lines automatically. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I get it. There's some hypocrisy in it, maybe, but
No, but yeah, I also wonder. I wanted to ask a little bit. I could be wrong, but you worked on Merry Little Batman, Sam?
Yep.
What did you do on Merry Little Batman? Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I just did boards on Merry Little Batman, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's yeah.
No,
that's it.
That
Moving
was
on.
that was my first feature I ever worked on, and that's like, if I make another storyboard comic, it would focus on that, and the show that I'm on now is based off of that movie, so it's like a similar vibe. Yeah, it was weird working on a feature before, so you just get like sequences, and in the beginning we would get like 6 weeks or whatever to do a sequence, and you'd like put everything you had into it. But by the end of that movie, it was just like totally frantic, and there was only like a few board artists left, and we had to like kind of redo everything like a million times. And from talking to people, I kind of feel like that's how a lot of features go.
Yeah, it's 100%. It took me, I think, for people who come from TV like us, it like the adjustment is so difficult, not so much on a skill level, but on being okay with your work being thrown away so much.
Morale.
Like morale. Yeah, you have to. For me, what's really helped me, so anyone who's listening and who kind of like is curious about the difference between TV and feature, but like because it was really hard on because Spider-Verse 2 was the first feature I worked on, and I was not used to that, and it like kind of broke me, honestly. But now the feature that I am on, I'm like, oh, I've been through this machine before, and now I have to rephrase it, and like everything I do helps the leadership visualize, so I'm helping them making their movie. I'm not making it so I'm not drawing a sequence so the sequence gets in the movie. I'm helping the director get a better idea what the movie should be, and that's made me feel a lot more at ease with that process. But it's brutal at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point too, and I think that's something else that I never really considered, really, just because like my introduction to animation was that Nickelodeon short, so it was kind of like I was like the creator, but I didn't actually draw anything, but I had this like team of people like asking me questions and stuff. So I've always felt like when I'm on a show, I'm just helping another artist achieve their vision, so I don't get super bent out of shape when that's not true at all. I like get super bent out of shape.
Name your top 5 times that you got bent out of shape about.
Oh, dude. I actually did. I'm really good at like riling myself up, like especially like working from home and stuff like that. Like I just sent this like totally unhinged email to one of the writers on the show that I'm on, and had to go on this like apology tour. I'm like a total lunatic sometimes. But yeah, it's funny that I love
it's
when
definitely
people
like not even as mean as we would probably be thinking. It's probably an email where you thought about it, seemed like a little passive aggressive, but you blow it up in your head. Like you were probably like, the email's probably like, thanks for the notes, period. And you're like, oh my god, I didn't put like a smiley face emoji after it, or oh no, they probably think I'm pissed.
yeah, half and half for sure.
That's so funny.
But yeah, with Merry Little Batman, it was just like the back half of that was just like totally crazy, like 3 days to do a whole sequence now. And yeah, is that what you're asking? Like you're just asking about Merry Little Batman in general, what it was like?
Yeah,
it was crazy working on a Batman thing. That's really weird. And like the Batman show that I'm on, it's just crazy working on an IP, because I've never worked on one of those before. And it's like, we have the WB executives, we have the Amazon Prime executives, because that's where it's airing, and then we also have the DC executives. So it's really hard to get through all that muck,
Yeah, I think that's what's hard with these big IPs, and sometimes maybe the fans online might not realize how many layers. Like it's very bureaucratic in a way.
Yeah.
It's like because there's so many levels, and they all have their little meetings also that we're not privy to, you know. So it's very kind of like opaque sometimes in like the process of making these big like movies, these huge properties.
Because there's so much money being put into it, and we're just like I hope my drawing gets in, you know, like
Yeah.
but they're like these millions of dollars getting put into this thing, and they're like,
Yeah, it's so interesting. I also wanted to ask you about writing, Sam, because you said that on Shape Island you wrote scripts, and I wanted to know what that experience was like.
Yeah, I think that was also just like that's something I really learned on the show Close Enough, because on regular show, like we as storyboard artists, we got like board credit, we got writing credit, you know. Leaving regular show was like, dude, I'm a freaking writer, you know, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then on Close Enough, it was like I remember like, you know, noting up a bunch of scripts and being like, oh, come on, like little, and Matt Price, the head writer of Close Enough, was like, okay, how about you write this like montage or something? And it was the first time I like wrote in script format, and I was like, oh, like this is actually like super hard and like a different language, you know, like it's so difficult. And now it's just like reading a good script is like, it's amazing. Like I do not have that ability, or like that's something I like genuinely want to be better at. Like
same.
When I think about, yeah, totally. When I think about like storyboarding and like drawing and stuff, it's like I see my strengths and weaknesses, but in a way I'm not super interested in learning how to make my weaknesses better in a way. Like I'm not like super good at like action stuff. I can like, I don't know, I just like, I'm not interested in like drawing figures better and like getting hands nailed down and stuff. It's just not what like interests me in drawing and stuff. But as writing, I feel totally different. Like I really want to like learn how to write better. So being on Close Enough, I really like dove into, I like got books from the library and like really like tried to like learn like script writing. And I also had like something in development at TBS that I had to write a script for at the same time, so it like worked out. But yeah, I like
so much learning on the job. That must feel crazy.
Definitely, dude. But yeah, after that, yeah, I applied to a bunch of like writing positions and stuff, and always helping my like all the regular show people are always pitching stuff around, and they ask for like notes on their scripts and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. So you do have that little writer community that kind of sprouted from regular show. Because I do feel like personally for me that was something that came in really handy, was starting to take a couple writing classes, and then I would meet other writers, and then they would show me their scripts, I could show them my scripts, and we could just, and seeing other people's scripts is like such, I don't know, I think it's really huge in learning writing.
It is true. Just like reading a bunch of scripts for sure. Just you see what works and what doesn't work, and like how some writers really think visually, and that like just makes it a better reading experience and stuff like that. Like using, like for me, it's like the quintessential like new writer. It's like you're using all kinds of like crazy adjectives and stuff like that. That's like what the trap I fall into, like getting too
really?
with it. Yeah, it's like
you're like verbose.
Verbose, yeah, I'm too verbose.
So funny.
But yeah, so Ryan Pequin was the head writer on Shape Island and gave me the job. So that's how I got that job. But it was amazing, just writing scripts and not drawing.
Shout out to Ryan, who was episode 116. I think that's kind of how it always happens, right? As somebody that you've worked with prior, and they're like, "Hey, I like you. You're a cool guy, or you're a cool person." Can you describe to us a little bit how the process of writing a script was like? How much were you given by the team, and from that starting point, how do you go about fleshing it out? How many check-ins? All of that nitty-gritty.
Well, on that show, we had a 2 or 3 day like writers, like virtual writers room, because it was all during pandemic, and that was just like so fun. Like being in a writer's room is like the most fun thing in the world. I love that. Just like coming up with outlines and stuff. And one of my scripts was based off of an outline that I wrote, so it was like very close to it from start to finish. But the other one was somebody else's outline, which was a little more difficult to like flesh out in script form, just because like when you're writing an outline, you're kind of thinking of like how this could be an episode, and you're kind of like filling in the blanks naturally. But yeah, I think it was actually like pretty like, I don't remember a lot of check-ins, but that show, Shape Island, is by the two showrunners are John Klassen and Mac Barnett, so they're like amazing writers anyways. So I'm sure they like kind of let the script writers just like kind of get away with whatever, and they like fixed it later just because they're geniuses. And Ryan Pequin is too. He was like he really led the writers room and stuff. Yeah, pretty limited experience with writing. I just did 2 eps, so don't have a ton of insight, honestly. But yeah, another thing that goes back to my Nickelodeon short was coming up with that episode. I remember thinking, when I think of stories, I think of moments. You know, it's like they do this, and they're like this funny moment, and this funny moment, and this funny moment. It's hard for me to really think about like but what's this episode about? And if you can't like describe it in a sentence, then you need to like start over. And that's a simple concept that I always fall. It's like I always have to like relearn that as I'm writing anything. Like if I'm writing a mini comic or something, it's like, what is this actually about? Like keep reminding yourself.
Because I feel like a lot of the reasons why we initially want to tell the stories is because of an idea for a moment that we have. But then we have to like zoom out and almost like work backwards. Like normally you'd think like, yeah, you start with this thing that is like the widest possible, description, because it's like one sentence. That's supposed to be the least amount of work. You work from the macro to the micro, but I feel like that's not how I work usually, and I feel like that makes it hard because we're like thinking in these like 1-page comic or like 30-second cartoon short, and then like when you're thrown into the world of thinking about a larger episode and how the different moments are stitched together, like it's kind of a mind fuck.
Totally.
I do feel like, though, I don't know, that's something that I'm starting to hear from writer friends. And also I read an article like that. It was an interview with like a Simpsons writer, and it's like that vomit draft, the very first draft where you just put everything on the page and then you go back in and make sense of it. Is that something that you do, Sam?
Yeah, I feel like we might have read the same thing, because I remember specifically on Shape Island hearing that exact thing and being like, that's genius. But I'm always hearing like new ways that people work, and I'm like, dude, I got to do that next time. And especially with like storyboards.
You know what I've been trying to do, like, and when I remember to do this, I try to do it, is I got this voice to text app on my phone, and I try sometimes to write out a scene or a dialogue in between characters just by like talking, and I try to talk it out, and because I feel like I can always like say the things, and I say the most like simple way to say it out loud, but it's not until I sit at and I'm trying to write it that I end up making it really complicated. So sometimes I try to just like say it or pitch it out loud or tell the story with my mouth first, and sometimes that's like a different way of doing it that helps me, because I definitely do the flowery thing. Sometimes I have trouble doing the vomit draft because I want it to be like whatever, funny or interesting or blah 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 from the beginning, and I get hung up on stuff. But if I'm just talking, I get less hung up on stuff, I think.
That makes sense.
That's such an interesting way that you're describing, Sean, because I have a couple friends who work kind of like you, where it's like very like almost like, it's almost that trope that you see in like pop culture where it's like somebody who wants to write a book, like their memoir, and they're like talking in like a a cassette, like but
right.
Like it's funny because when I write, I'm very visual in that sense, where I need to write down things in bullet points, and then I can start from bullet points and flesh it out. I've tried doing the voice to text in like Google Docs and stuff to try to help me write quote unquote more, but it just I just don't work that way. I'm like,
I've been doing
it's so
revisions on
funny.
a script by like right now because I have a script that is turned into a radio play, and I got notes, so I'm doing revisions, but I'm doing the writing revisions instead of doing it on the script. I do the writing revisions, recording each line and trying different ways of saying it, like as the characters. And then I record one line and then record the response to that line. And if I don't like that, I delete those or whatever. But I've just been trying different things because, especially if I like hit a block, I'm like, I have to try to figure out a way around it a little bit.
Interesting.
Do you have any kind of like favorite way of kind of working through these moments? Is it just kind of like whatever goes?
Yeah, I used to, like, when I was like really stuck, specifically for writing something, I feel like going somewhere. I feel like whenever I'm on the computer, it's just so distracting. So yeah, like go to a coffee shop or somewhere where there's like ambient noise where I don't have to like choose music or like something to, I can just like, I don't know, like go to a park. I never go to parks. Coffee shops.
Yeah, I thumbnail better on paper too. Thumbnail and like
so true
on paper.
I wish, okay, sponsorship idea. I should reach out to Remarkable because literally this has saved my life for thumbing. This is a little tangent brought by yours truly, but I feel like I can download my PDFs on this tablet, which works very much. It looks like this. It works very much like paper for me because you can't really zoom in and there's nothing on it. You can just like open your PDF and that's it. And then so I thumb on my script directly and I can go to coffee shop like you were mentioning, Sam. And then when I'm done, I can just email it back to me and I can just literally like screenshot my little thumbnails and plop them into Storyboard Pro. And it makes it so much faster. Because before I used to print it out, draw on paper on the script, and then I would have to look at my thumbnails and redraw them in Storyboard Pro. But for some reason, I don't know, it's really hard for me to do that, to redraw from a thumbnail that I drew on a piece of paper. It's just so much easier to grab it directly. I don't know.
That's cool. Yeah, I wish I did thumbnails. I don't do thumbnails.
You don't do thumbnails?
I whenever I try, I feel like I'm just like, it's like, who am I doing this for? It's like I'm doing it so somebody can see me doing thumbnails because I just like can't think that way. I mean, I do write like, I draw like little incoherent like 1-shot, 2-shot, 3-shot, like just little circles. But yeah, I don't do thumbnails. And actually, specifically on this show that I'm on now, there's like, right now nobody has jobs, so my show's like pretty stacked. So I'm working with like a bunch of like amazing people like Stu Livingston and stuff. Like I've always wanted to work with Stu. He has these like beautiful sketchbook pages that are just like he grids out like these perfect thumbnails, and he has like a million little tiny perfect thumbnails. I'm like, god damn, I wish I could do that. And then this other guy I work with like does it all. Like he has a system on Storyboard Pro where he like draws tons of like a 9x9 grid almost of panels, and he like each one is a different scene. Yeah, it's bizarre, but everybody has their own ways, and like I always wish I could do that, but I just kind of like plow through, honestly. Like I have to visualize it in my head a lot. That's how I work. I like have to read the script a million times and just think about it.
That is so funny.
Yeah, just kind of plow through, and then like,
I board a lot in my head too.
I think that's where I do most of my thumbnailing.
You guys have like the superpower because I can do that a little bit. I can see it a little bit in my brain, but like I have to. I don't know. I'm more of that, like, I have to like see it to see if any of the things I'm thinking in my brain makes any sense,
I imagine a lot of like the master shots in my head. Like I'm trying to think about the strongest, the biggest shots where I'm going to be able to cut in and out and reuse, and like my big setups. And then after I get those done, I'm usually a little less stressed out. Like I know I need to prioritize those, and then the connective tissue I can get, but it's always frustrating to like start storyboarding and then halfway through you realize that you have this setup shot and there's a bunch of shots that you already planned out that like really they should be from that same setup shot angle to like save time or make things make sense, and then you have to redo stuff. So like figuring out what those most important angles and shots are what I usually think about first, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you guys want to talk specifically about storyboarding? Because I've been thinking about master shots and stuff specifically.
I'm down. I
really
love talking about storyboarding. I love talking shop. So if you're down,
has one of the best. They had one of the best outlines for how to storyboard.
Yeah,
very simply that I've ever come across. Like it is the most simple way to storyboard in a cartoony way, so that you don't have to think about much. Like, and gives you a chance to, because we were writing dialogue too, so it was like, hey, we don't want you thinking about a billion different types of fancy shots. Like, here's how we want you to storyboard this, and after that, then you can just focus on writing and the jokes and stuff. But I'd love to get your take on how you think about storyboarding.
Totally. Yeah, approach. And I fully agree. The regular show storyboarding packet is like 15 pages long and like literally everything you ever need to know about storyboarding. It's so amazing. But so the show that I'm on now is it's all the characters are rigged. It's like I think it's a harmony show. But so is Apple and Onion. So when I started this job, I was thinking about it in Apple and Onion, and Apple and Onion was all master shots and then cut-ins, because they did all the backgrounds in house. They didn't want a ton of backgrounds. You couldn't cut around a lot. So yeah, it was like exactly how you described it, Sean, like very thought out master shots that had to like serve a million purposes. And this show, it's like a flipped concept where like they kind of don't, same thing, like limited budget type of thing, but it's like every background should be cool and every camera shot should be cool, and it's like very dynamic, and like they want it to be Batman-y, and like so all the camera angles are super low, and
it's a challenge.
So it's just like not how I think. And I just came back from a trip from South Carolina visiting family and stuff, and whenever I'm back there, I watch like a Pixar movie with my nephew, and I watched Toy Story 4 for the first time.
Is that the one where they end up in a daycare?
No, it's like Woody has to choose between going back to his... Do they end up at a daycare? They end up at a carnival at the end. I was kind of...
Okay. I think I'm confused. I always ask because I confuse Toy Story 3 and 4. I think that's the reason why. Okay.
Yeah, but as I was watching that movie, I just like looking at the storyboards, I'm like, they really make you feel like you are in it. Like if there's two people talking, you're like right between them, you know, like going like looking this way. And when there's an action scene, everything's like coming right at you, or you're like on the ride with the characters. But that's like not how I think, and that's not really how like regular show is either. It's like you're more just like zoomed out watching characters do stuff. So that's like something that has been on my mind like this week, is like I need to really refocus on putting the camera like close to the characters like that, because that's what they would tell us, is like make the camera closer. And in my mind I'm like, okay, I'll just like make them bigger in frame. But having the mentality of like why, like I don't know, I'm explaining it badly, but yeah, there you go. Look at that. That's exactly like what it is. It's like instead of setting up like a little shoebox,
you make like a little diorama or like a dollhouse, and then cutting around on that same background until the characters move or until you need to direct the camera somewhere else.
I think I would kind of describe it as if like I think in live action they call it multicam versus single cam, where it's like multicam, it's these sitcoms that used to be filmed on set with the audience. So you had like maybe 3 camera setups, and you would just kind of switch back and forth between the different cameras to highlight the actor who's like the funniest, who's like the zinger or whatever. And the like single camera would be kind of like you're in the action, you're with the character, you're kind of like you have more camera moves, but it's kind of like more expensive in the sense that you do have to redo your camera setup every time, because you're not just pinging between a couple of like cameras that are already.
It's very interesting. You know, I've always heard that like multicam sitcom. I just never thought about it that way. That makes a lot of sense. And seeing this drawing you just made of 3 cameras, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like you could draw the.
It's like a little dollhouse or something.
Yeah, you could draw the audience right behind the cameras, and that would be like your little like live sitcom.
I mean, my favorite thing to do when I can get away with it is to try to get away with using like one background that has like extended features on either side that I could use or pan to, and basically like for like a full minute just use the same exact background but cut around to different parts. One of the things that I had to do on the show Tigtone is you'd figure out like okay, so the main characters are entering the spider's lair, so we would have like, okay, we want to build it around their first encounter with the spider, but then we want to design this cave so there's a little bit of time where they're walking, side by side along this way, and then we also want to design into this background the entry of the cave where they first come in. And then when they need to leave the cave, there is like kind of like a banana pan shot up to the exit of the cave, and you have the sun shining here. And what we would do is we would plan out this elaborate dollhouse diagram where we would say during this scene we are mostly just going to use this. We'll just be using this background asset for a full 5 to 7 minutes, whatever. But it's just we make it so that because you have separate pieces, if you wanted to, you could take this part of the cave and you can have a character. You could be looking over the character's shoulder and use this part of the cave with the spider's den here. And then if you wanted to have the opposite direction, you could use this side of the cave, and you have like the main character in the spider's legs, and then you can use this part of the drawing for the reverse angle. It's like maximum economical like usage, and you just make these big backgrounds. And that's one of the benefits of doing something very digitally, is you can sort of like create these different I don't know if it's been a long time since I've diagrammed that out, but I think it is an interesting way to, like, instead of pitching thumbnails, we would just pitch setups and diagrams. Dude, really? Like this.
That's so interesting
for that show. Yeah.
Wow.
Because there were so many detailed paintings on that show that they were like, basically we have to figure out every single shot and how to make it the most economic that we can. Yeah,
because the show looks crazy. I remember watching some of these. I mean, it's a crazy show, but also I was just like, how did they like paint all of these friggin' backgrounds? It looks insanely expansive. Wow. Behind the scenes.
I feel like you've worked on very different shows than I have, Sean. Like, it's more of like smaller teams and way more like digital. I feel like you have to, because you like animated and stuff on a lot of shows too, right?
Not a lot of shows. I my boards do tend to be a little bit more animated, but I go in between like storyboarding and like animating more personal stuff, and like and getting as like doing shorts for different people. So I do end up animating a little bit, but I mean, I have been sort of in between this world of like storyboard driven, like somewhere between like regular show, pickle and peanut, apple and onion, to then like the in-between zone, which is sort of like the Midnight Gospel, where it feels like a storyboard driven show, but there's podcast audio. Like we pitched so many jokes that it ends up feeling like a storyboard driven show. And then, but also to like an Adult Swim script driven show that has like a crazy turnaround, and we have to like be super economic. So I feel very fortunate to have kind of bip and bopped around and kind of got some different flavors of stuff. Yeah. I think that my favorite thing to work in is probably closer to storyboard driven, like around the vibe of Midnight Gospel or like regular show, like that sort of feeling.
We have a ton of really good questions that I want to make sure we get through them, because I want to. Okay, this one is kind of crazy, but I'm excited to see if you have any take on this, Sam. It's from our very first Newgrounds commenter who asked, their name is Alastair, I guess. Do you think people are too focused on trying to become celebrities? And what would be a way of mitigating the self-destructive path that some people have?
Oh, dude, I want to be a celebrity. I want to.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I want to be famous.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So, you really don't come off that way.
Yeah.
Like you're so chill. You're so like chill, and you're like, I want to become famous. Like I don't know if I've ever met somebody who said I want to become famous so nicely.
Right?
like you're like, can I become famous, please? Like
I don't want to be famous, but I want everybody to know who I am. But yeah, then I think about like maybe I don't. You know, like the internet's so cruel and I don't know.
Do you want everyone to see your artwork, or you want people to recognize you?
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is. Maybe I just want people to like know my artwork. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
maybe recognize your name in attachment to your artwork, but not like stop you in the middle of a cafe and ask for pictures or what.
That would be cool. I'd be down for that if somebody wants to stop me in a cafe. But yeah, I don't think I've ever come across with like that, what that question is saying. Like, do people, I mean, I'm like half joking, I don't want to be a celebrity. Do people say that? Like
I think it's an interesting question, because I know that I have known people like that who being a showrunner was a path to, how did you say,
celebrity?
Celebrity. Okay, I was trying to put dom at the end. Celebrity dom, like that doesn't make any sense.
Celebrity smart.
Yeah. Yeah, like, so I don't know. I wonder if you've ever not encountered that, but like if that's ever been something that's crossed your mind, I guess.
So I'm trying to think of like somebody who I've like worked with in animation who's like trying to be a celebrity. I can't think of one, but that would be funny. Like I could see that being annoying for sure.
Well, because big names, like I feel like, for example, if like I would say if I were to pick a name that of like a showrunner that became famous, I could probably think of like Alex Hirsch. I could also probably think of Ben Ward. I think he probably has like some amount of celebrity attached to the name. Matt Groening, they're like.
Yeah. The question was like saying like what was the question again?
Do you think people are too focused on trying to become celebrities?
In animation, I would say no.
Okay.
Because it's not normally like, because we're so behind the scenes, like it's not like we're actors on the screen. I do think you get less animators and or people in this field that want to be really big, like recognizable celebrities. I think there is a difference in between wanting to have your work recognized by everybody and wanting to have your face recognized by anybody. But also, I think that because this question is coming from Newgrounds, we may have a little bit of the idea of being a Newgrounds or indie comic or animation person is different than being on a show. Like being on a show, even if you're on a successful show, you're just a name in the credits unless somehow you get your own show or something. Whereas there are a few sort of celebrity YouTube animators who get known as like all their cartoons are like, it's them. It's just them or them in a small team, and they, their faces in videos all the time, and that, so maybe the culture is a little bit different.
They're like an auteur almost, and it's almost like a level of like micro celebrity in the sense that within that niche of internet celebrity, you are recognized, I guess, by a internet pool of people, I guess, if that makes sense. But I do feel like if you were to ask, that's really interesting, because I do wonder if people, okay, so I'm trying to think of someone who's really big, like as an animator online, like maybe Odd One. Me Canyon. I wonder, do you think Me Canyon gets recognized when he walks around, when he like goes?
I think
He does.
I mean, at a convention, he would. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if he like goes to like Jack in the Box or something.
I mean, probably. I mean, he has millions of subscribers,
Yeah.
so probably more than like a lot of people, a lot of animators at least.
That's
I
true.
mean, I think it was.
Yeah.
I always thought it was interesting that I feel like potentially JG could have been a celebrity, but he seems very private, and he sort of stayed out of things.
Of the public eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's that level of like regular show is such a huge show.
Yeah, I don't think I'm like that. I think I would want to put my face out there. I think honestly, when I think about it, it's like talking about like big inspirations again. Like I remember one of my first like click moments, like I want to draw for the rest of my life, was meeting the Toy Machine team. They came to my like skate shop when I was a little kid. And do you guys know who Ed Templeton is? He's like the guy that created Toy Machine, but they're like on their graphics they have like 6 different like cartoony characters, and they had these giant Toy Machine posters and they would hand them out to everybody, and you would wait in line and go through. They had like tables set up and you would get them signed by the whole team, and Ed Templeton was the last guy there, and he would draw one of the characters on everybody's poster, and it was just like so sick to see like, oh, which one am I gonna get? And I was like, that's what I want to do one day. I want to sit at a table and have like 10 characters that everybody knows and draw one of those 10 characters and make somebody's day.
Honestly, that is so real.
I wonder what the psychology is there of like, is that why you do diary comics? Because you're like, everyone recognize me, my drawing of me, look at me and recognize me.
That's exactly it,
me.
dude.
I'm the main character. I'm the main character of my own cartoon.
1000%. That is exactly why.
It's good that you know that about yourself. No, it's good.
That is so funny.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm a very like very soft spoken. I have never been heard. I feel like throughout my life, like I could be like screaming and nobody would hear me in a crowded room.
Sam's like,
You're literally like what that was like the log line for Aliens, the first movie. Like nobody hears you scream in space or something.
It's true.
That was you.
But for me, it's just like in a room with like 5 other people in it. Nobody hears me.
Oh my god.
But so yeah, that's how I want to be heard through my diary comics.
That is so real. Do you, this is kind of random. Do you come from like a big family?
No, actually, I have a brother and sister, but no.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that, because I feel like, I don't know, this is just random.
Yeah, I could see that being like the middle child of like 15. Nobody knows me.
Yeah. We have our previous guest, Danny Hines, asks you,
cool.
How does your approach to comics differ from your approach to storyboards for animation, if at all?
Yeah, that is, when I first started on regular show, I was like, oh, I get it. Storyboarding is just like making comics of the episode. And it took me a long time to realize that it's like, that is completely not true. Like,
yeah,
it is not like
you
that.
can like just skip moments and skip time all the time if you want to. And,
yeah. And also something that like JG really beat into my head on that show was people can only look at one thing at once. Because in my comics, I'm always putting stuff in the background and like shit's moving in the background.
Dude, that is so real. I feel like that's the power of comics, where you can have like 4 different information in a single panel.
Totally.
In animation, no, you cannot. You absolutely cannot do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something where it was a very big learning experience on that show, of course. And then I also started thinking about storyboarding more as like graphic design, because that's like also my background. Because in graphic design, there's just like rules you don't break. Like you don't stretch type. It looks horrible unless you like do it on purpose, you know, like, yeah, there's just like certain things. Like if you want people to look at this thing, you make it bigger, like hierarchy and stuff like that. So I started thinking about storyboarding more as like design, as like more composition in that sense, rather than like comic booky storytelling. So yeah, like I said, storyboarding and comic books, and it's just such a culmination of like 1,000 different things. But yeah, I think of my comics super, super different than my storyboards.
I love that you brought graphic design into storyboarding is that you compared it to storyboarding, right?
Yes.
Because I do think about storyboarding in that way as well, where I'm like, the bigger information I want the audience to really, really understand right away, I'm gonna make it really big on the screen.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like, I think it's just so interesting how you, I don't know, like, and also like the amount of room a specific object or character or information is going to take in the screen. Like, even if they might be far away, they can still take up room in like creative ways. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool and astute.
Thanks. Thank you, Danny. Danny's the coolest.
From Instagram, Captain Mycelia asks, what was an idea you had for one of the show you worked on that never came to fruition?
I have a good answer for this.
I like that you're making yourself laugh right now.
Because were you partners with Owen when he pitched Infinity Train?
He had already pitched Infinity Train. He was making the first episode, and when I was working with him, he was in the middle of, there were some revisions that came back from overseas, and he had decided to hand animate it himself as the revisions, and so he was in the middle of drawing that like monster creature with all the legs.
Crazy. Yeah, the steward. But yeah, in like very, very, very early Infinity Train days, he like gathered a few people just to talk about like the arc of the first season, and it was like maybe before it was even greenlit, like super, super early. And I remember being like, because it starts with Tulip, the main character, in her bedroom, and then she jumps out the window, gets sucked on this train, goes through an adventure or whatever. And I remember being like, dude, what if like when she comes back, her parents bought her like a toy train, and like on the train it's like the Infinity Train, like there's like all these like pictures and like memorabilia from all the different cars she went on. And he was like, no, that's an awful idea. And I remember being like much later,
and you're like, why?
And I remember later being like, it must have been like a little bit later, like, you know, time passed, and I was like, I just kind of forgot that moment and kind of pitched it to him again. Like, didn't you come up with this like idea where she gets a toy train? It's like, no, dude, that was you, and it was a bad idea.
You tried to gaslight him into thinking it was his own idea. And like, are we still doing your idea where the mom gives a toy train and there's all the memorabilia in there? Remember that? That would be really cool if that was your idea that you had.
That's like 1,000% exactly what happened.
That's too good. Yeah. That's too funny.
So yeah, Infinity Train would have been better if I was in charge. Just kidding. Yeah, I can't think of any other specific things.
No, that's a good specific.
That's really great.
It would be funny if I was holding on to like one little joke in like an Apple and Onion episode that got cut. I'm like, they should have done that.
It would be funny if you were trying to put that one joke in every single show you're on, and every single show like shoots it down, and you're like,
dude, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I do that. I keep jokes for like years, and I'm like, what about? Is this show have the chance to shine? I had this one song that I made that I had saved for like 6 years, and I made this song. It was called Basement Dad Fashion Show, and it was just all these like dads who were like had exaggerated like Vogue style dad parody fashion costumes, and they're all just dancing, and that was the extent of the idea. It's just a funny song where they're all like duck walking and stuff, and I remember I pitched it to Super Deluxe.
Didn't you?
Yeah,
you did it yourself.
I've seen that. So I pitched it to Super Deluxe as like it's like a story about a father, and like the wife and daughter think he's like going off to cheat on them or whatever, and like they follow him to this like strange neighborhood, and he says like a dad joke at the door to get in, and it's like the secret underground like dad fashion show, and and they were like, no, we don't want this, and I was like, got it, all good. and then a few years later, Adult Swim was looking for. They were like, hey, can you do a Rick and Morty bumper? It's like a 15-second bumper. And I was like,
oh my god,
oh shit, Morty has a dad. what if he goes into the basement and his dad is doing a fashion show, whatever. And I ended up using that song and making it, but like straight up, it was like over the course of like 5 years trying to find a place for this song. And sometimes I feel like that's a sort of a metaphor for how pitching shows work sometimes, because I mean, right now I'm developing a web series that's based on a cartoon that I made in my junior year of college. like I mean sometimes you just have an idea and you like hold on to, you keep it in your little pocket, and you're just like, it's like waiting for its time to strike, and that's how a joke is sometimes. I don't know if you do that ever, or if you, when you have a joke idea, you like put it into a comic and you're like, okay, it's used up. But I don't know.
No, I have I use Google Keeps. It's like instead of a note app, and I have like a funny ideas folder, and every time I like have a new one, I write it down, and then I'll like read another one, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, I'm freaking hilarious.
I love that.
I've got to try pitching this multiple times. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I have bullets in the chamber whenever I need one.
When you think about, I feel like everybody has like their fallback joke, their genre of joke that they use all the time. Do you have like oh my god, that's such a Sam joke? Like, do you have one that you recognize is one that you have?
I do. Something that I always do, that I kind of have to like, I always like am about to like say it, but like kind of pull myself back, is
they get a gift from their mom at the end of whatever it is, and it's the thing that they were doing. And
it's like a photo scrapbook that it's like all the memories of the show. It's just like the perfect ending. Like, can you think of something better than that?
Dude, you gotta put that in something you do.
That is so fun. Wait, is this for real? Is it just a bit?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
I was like, that would be so funny if Sam's joke actually was this, because that's like so high concept and
like,
crazy.
Is that not actually a joke? But yeah.
What's your joke?
I was gonna say, like, I usually, mostly it's just like funny words. You know, it's like I just try to say like silly words is my thing.
Got you.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of a specific example, but it's just like using a word that's been said and saying it again. I can't explain it, but you'll know it when you see it. You'll be like, that's SAM SPINA right there.
It's like the cadence and like the sounds, like that's like sounds pleasing. Yeah.
I have two that I can think of. One of them is something that doesn't quite fit another thing. Like, a thing is too big for a thing is too big for something. My other one is someone's dressed up as something else, but the costume is really bad. So it'll be like a rat dressed as a beautiful woman, but it looks like a little kid did the makeup or something. Like, that's
yeah. Not to keep talking about regular show over and over again, but you got to do a Halloween episode, didn't you?
Yeah. I did.
Did you do the rat in the?
No. I didn't. I didn't get to do that, but I did. Did I get to do any of my classic?
The Sean classics.
I did try to work in another classic into. I used to try to pitch Pops as saying really, really dark stuff all the time, like, because he's such a cheery character that I thought it was very funny, like having him kind of trail off into like there's some darkness in there. I used to try to get that by all the time, and they'd be like, that line doesn't fit, and I'd be like, okay.
Dude, that's just like the Bob Ross, like the Bob Ross clips where he's just like the light at the end of the tunnel someday. You just gotta keep going. I'm like, what are you saying,
keep driving
Bob?
to the light at the end of the tunnel. No, I got to work on the Halloween episode, and Owen and I got to design the costumes they're all wearing. We got to pitch costumes, sci-fi costumes, for that episode in the last season, and I still have some of the concepts like that we used to try to pitch the different characters, and so that was really cool. I wish that I made the costumes look shittier, but I mean, I think in general, by default, there's a little bit of like already making the costumes look a little shitty just because it's these characters wearing these simplified versions of these costumes. But
totally. Yeah, I always wish I got to do a Halloween episode to draw him in a costume, because I remember drawing on like a post-it note of, it was like one of the characters, like Rigby or something, dressed as Benson. And I think that's similar to like what I was like, my joke is like always trying to like use something that's around, like, I don't know, like if there's a sentence, like use one of those words. Well, never mind. I'm not going to explain that.
Oh, you're kind of like, it's almost like a running gag kind of setup where you're just going to reuse a lot of, I do love that. I do love kind of like, because I feel like when you keep pinging on the same joke that you've set up in an episode, like it's so universal because it's all self-contained in the episode. You don't need to watch the whole show, and everybody gets it. And there's something that's like very sweet about that.
Self-contained jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
And then if someone from another episode likes that joke enough, who knows? Maybe they'll use it, and then it becomes like a canon thing that people. Another thing that I try to do on shows specifically is I try to work in songs as a go-to, and part of it is because there's a certain, when you pitch a song, you get a lot of creative, it's like you're stealing creative control real quick. But also potentially you can get royalties. And so on most cartoons where there's like an option to pitch a song, I've tried to on Pickle and Peanut. I did pitch I got a song into Apple and Onion. I still get royalty checks from Apple and Onion.
Nice, dude.
Heck yeah, dude.
And that it was the one episode I worked on before I left. But I remember
that it was your and Alex's episode, and I remember there was a really hilarious song in there, but I don't remember what it is.
They have this game that they're playing called Bottle Catch, where they're just like throwing a bottle back and forth, and so I was like pitching all these like funny names for the moves that they're doing, but the moves aren't that impressive, and like that. So that's always fun, and the hard part about doing that is it's a huge risk, because if they don't want a song, you put all this effort into pitching a song, and they can just say like, no, we don't want one right there, and then it's like risking it.
Yeah, I wish I was musical.
I know, right? I feel like I'm so jealous of your musical talent, Sean, that you can just play guitar and stuff. Like all of the artists, I love the board artists who can like draw, write, and like also play music and write songs. I'm just like, gosh dang.
Yeah.
Well, I'm jealous of there's some storyboard artists that are like, they're good at drawing and they're super in shape, and I'm like, well, how the hell are you doing storyboards and then going to the gym like 4 times a week? Like, so
where's the time?
That's its own
Yeah, you got to pick. It's either music or the gym. You can't do both.
You can't do both.
If you're a board artist, it's either the music or the gym.
The key is you got to get a really heavy guitar, and then it's like you're working out when you're playing.
Yeah, dude, finger weights.
Oh my god.
Finger weights.
Let's head back into zines and comics for just a hot second, because our patron Kay asks, what is your process for conceptualizing a zine, and at what point does an idea become worth zinifying?
Yeah, it used to just be like, that thing of just like coming up with like a funny moment and writing around that moment for however long you want your zine to be. At least 12 pages, I think, is like as small as I would go. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually been struck with the zine bug in a while. I don't know. I just feel like they're so time consuming, but that's the beauty of a zine, is it could be anything.
When you do zines, are they usually comic zines, like one-off comics, or when you do a zine, are you like, I want to just do a short comic and it's a zine? Or I mean, because there's a lot of people that just do like illustration zines, and it's just a collection of their illustrations.
Yeah, I guess I do use them kind of interchangeably, but they're more comic zines. But I have done more where they're just like drawings zines, and like a lot of my diary comic ones, it's like some of them are sketchbook pages also. But yeah, I definitely still I always have a pocket sketchbook, a regular sketchbook, and a writing notebook. And yeah, every once in a while I'll just be like struck with a story idea and like write it down real quick. So yeah, I have tons of ideas are easy to come up with, you know what I mean? It's like the going through the actual process of making a comic is so time consuming, and I just haven't. Maybe if I have like a couple months off or something next hiatus, we'll do it again. But Yeah, it used to just be very freeform. Like if I thought something was funny enough, I honestly wouldn't think about it too much. I would just like write it down super fast and then just start drawing it and eventually finish it someday. But it's like the more you plan, the more room you leave for yourself to like stop doing it in a way, you know?
Dude, I relate to that so much. Yeah, I feel like if I overthink a story, then I get bored with it and I'm like, eh.
Totally.
Yeah.
You lose that like spark.
Do you have something you're in the middle of? That you're in the middle of making like a personal project right now?
Not really, no. I'm gonna put together another collection of my diary comics, but when I was on Infinity Train, I started working on my first big graphic novel.
Ooh.
Because that's actually that the whole short was in development at Nickelodeon for like 4 years after the short was made. And when it was killed, I was like, damn, I'm not ever going to like waste my time doing that again. Like, I wish I like put all that energy into making a graphic novel. Then I'd have like a finished book by now. But yeah, so I like started writing this graphic novel and did that thing where I wrote it for like a full year. Like I outlined it and like made all these notes and came up with the world and characters and la la la. And then when I finally started like drawing it, I was like, holy shit, this is going to take forever. But I have like 80 pages fully done, but it's probably going to be like a 400-page book. So it's been on pause for years, but...
Whoa, why did you make it such a long... Why didn't you split it into... Why did you make the first thing so long? Yeah,
the trap is splitting it, because I would never do a part 2. You know, you always want to move on to something new.
Okay.
And it was supposed to just be like a similar vibe to Whole, my Nickelodeon short, but it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger, you know? It's like the thing about comics that I love is nobody tells you what to do. You know, you always have to deal with like notes from somebody in animation. So
yeah, that is so real.
Yeah, just let loose and tell a long meandering story. Yeah, I hope to finish it one day, but I'm not going to stress myself out about it like I used to. How about you guys? Do you have any like long personal projects right now? I mean, you have your Adult Swim thing, Sean.
Yeah, and V just finished hers.
Yeah, it's coming out tomorrow. I mean, for people who are listening to this interview, it's already come out by now. But for us, we're in the past. For you, in the future, listener, it's coming out on April 5th, which is tomorrow for us.
Oh my god!
I do the voices of all the men.
I know, it is so good. Sean is like fucking hilarious. You came up with so many ad libs that, in my opinion, made it even better.
Thank you. Well, I'm very excited. It's gonna be cool.
It's amazing. How long is it?
It's like a 3 times 3 minutes. So it's like, 'cause they're like smalls, and I'm kind of confused because when you look at all the other smalls on their channel, it's like you have a bunch of stuff that's like their latest smalls was 10 minutes long, and I was like, oh my god, because I know how much money they're paying. Like basically they're not paying you more money to make something longer. Right. It's like they're like, here's the amount of money that you get, and you can make anything between 1 to 3 minutes, but if you want to do more than 3 minutes, just go off. But it's
maybe
like,
they took their 3 shorts and they turned it into one thing, and that's like the combination of 3 shorts is 10 minutes.
I wonder, yeah, because it's called Nobody Wants to Be the Moon. I think it's like that was the one that came out last week, and it's like, honestly, I think it's like really good. Like there's like the songs are good. It's pretty funny. It's very sweet. So I was just like, wow, man, they went off.
That's amazing. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and then I'm doing my own first graphic novel, just like you, I guess. I'm publishing it on Instagram, all of it.
You're like posting it, like you're actually doing it. That's amazing. How many pages or strips do you have?
I think I'm at 245.
Golly.
Man.
So I'm trying to get to 300. I want it to be like a chunky book so that when it's on the shelf, it's like you can see the big fat spine.
That is key, dude. The spine is the most important part of book design. And so many people like whiff on the spine.
I know. It's so true, because I remember...
I'm going to make my neon highlighter colors.
Seriously.
with
Dude, for real,
holographic
though.
text.
You should.
Like, you're joking, but that's
Yeah.
literally kind of what you gotta do, for real.
Yeah, I'm gonna make spikes coming off of it, so you like rip your arm as you're walking by it on accident, and then you have to contact me to like look up if I like have like poisoned it, or like, you know, put like you start getting a rash, and then you do some litigation, and then you're suing me. But by then you read the book, which is great.
And then your book is like a mimic. It's like you think it's a book, but then it's a monster that like lunges at you. It's pretty funny.
The spine gets bigger the more blood that it consumes.
Yeah.
I wanted I know this isn't really like in the flow of the conversation, but we were talking about jokes and jokes that we were holding on to for a while. And on Instagram, a special raptor asks, were there jokes behind the scenes that the cat was hot? So this is about Infinity Train. It really felt like one of those crew jokes that spilled into the show when characters started mentioning it in the 4th season. So just curious if you noticed that during your time there.
Yeah, I was only there on the first 2 books, and I saw that comment on Instagram, and I'm like, he must know something that I do not know, because yeah, I've never heard that. That is funny though. I like the joke. I could see people pitching that joke that everybody thinks the cat is hot. Because it's just like literally just a cat.
That is so funny. Because I'm like, I hope Sam knows what this is about. Because I'm like, is the cat sexy hot, or is it just like warm hot?
Just a literal cat. Like, it's just a cat.
It's
I'll draw it from memory if it has a shape like this.
I think also sometimes the internet is also kind of crazy. Not just sometimes, all the time.
I think so, yeah. I think
people online, we just need to find things hot. We just
should have made that to Spina. Have you guys seen that Spina restaurant that opened in Eagle Rock?
I have not.
No. Do you have a desire to like see if you can get some free meals?
No, they don't have. I'm vegan and they don't have anything vegan, so I have a personal vendetta against that place. But I've been getting a lot of messages because I've met like one other Spina in my life, and there's this big restaurant. It says Spina really big, and it kind of looks like that typeface, like it's like kind of cartoony-ish type.
That is so funny. What if this is your claim to fame? This is how you're a celebrity, is everybody thinks it's your restaurant, kind of like Hell's Kitchen, but
I'll take it.
Spinna. Oh, I know why the cat
isn't his restaurant.
Is there a Hell's Kitchen? Is there a restaurant? I think Gordon Ramsay's.
That's just the show.
Yeah.
I think that's just what the show's called.
I thought there was a restaurant. Everybody in the comments,
maybe.
if you're listening to this, you have
If you're
to
a
pick
Ramsay
a team.
head.
Yeah. Tell us if Hell's Kitchen is also a restaurant. I think it's a restaurant. Tell us who's right and who's wrong. I think the cat is hot because the cat has a tuxedo.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like they have a little tuxedo. And if you put a little tuxedo on any character, the internet will think they're hot.
True.
That's how it works.
The cat's hot because he's ripped.
Yeah, I can't draw anything complicated without penciling first. It's amazing to watch you just draw these abs like that.
I'm gonna save that clip where you're complimenting how I draw abs and watch that later. Thank you so much. What an honor.
Carl's Art asks, where did your inspiration for the glad one, sad one robot come from? Was it Hal from Kubrick's 2001?
I bet. Well, Owen came up with that. Owen Dennis, the creator of Infinity Train. And he voices that character too, sad one.
Mm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was influenced by Hal, but he probably wasn't, you know? Owen also might get offended, you know? Like, it's probably just like an original thing. Owen's a creative dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer that. I had no influence on those character designs. Great character designs, though. A circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this show's so fun. I think the world and like the characters, the lore is so fun. We had a question from Puzzle Glum on Patreon. Thank you so much for your question, Puzzle Glum. But I think we might just go into the final titular question, which is, Sam, do you experience creative block? And if you do, what does it feel like? And how do you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I think as I get older and I'm more used to the feeling of creative block now, it's not as like devastating as it once was. And I feel like I have a lot more hobbies than I did previously, and I'm pretty good at like not beating myself up. If something's not working, I'll just go to something else, and like just more like do what I feel nowadays, because I used to put so much pressure on myself to draw more comics and like, oh my god, I haven't put a zine out in like 6 months, like what the hell, like people are gonna forget about me, like that type of thing. But yeah, I don't put that pressure on myself anymore, so creative block is less hurtful for me. It's like I go through phases. Like sometimes I'm like really into like painting and I don't care about like comics at all. Like I'm coming out of a heavy sketchbook phase where all I want to do is just draw in my sketchbook. Yeah, I feel like just do something else, unless like if it's your job, then it's different, because you just like, for me, I'm just fully deadline motivated at that point, like just like fully fear-based, like that's how you push through the creative block, because you have to. But if it's for your own personal stuff, do something else. It'll come back to you. Don't force it, because even if you do force it, it's not going to be as good as if it just came to you naturally.
What if someone's been creatively blocked for like 3 years?
Do
you have any ideas for? Yeah, do you have any ideas for how someone might reignite some old passions?
I feel like I could say a bunch of stuff, but they would be disingenuous, because I also feel like the pandemic really took it out of me. And that's actually when I gave up on that big graphic novel project, because I was just like, I didn't want to do it. It was just like fully like forcing myself to do it. And I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, I should just do something else. But that was like a year-long realization of beating myself up over it, being like, I'll come back to this later, and I know maybe that means I'll never come back to it. Like, whatever. Like, just gonna do what I want to right now. I'm gonna play Stardew Valley, and I'm not gonna feel guilty about it. Like, whatever. Like, you just gotta live your life too, But...
Stardew Valley kinship. Oh shoot, I wanted to ask you about the podcasts and YouTube videos that you watch. It's so funny to me. Every single one of your comics, you're always like, you always go through, I'll just watch a bunch of trash on YouTube instead of working. And then when you clean up, you're like, now I can finally catch up on podcasts.
Dude, yeah,
and I want to know, what are your go-tos? What's your go-to?
Wait, let's talk about trash YouTube for a sec. I want what's yours? Yeah.
I have a new thing. It's ex-Mormons talking about leaving the Mormon church. Fascinating. I didn't know, like I said, I came from like more of like those like big mega church, like rock and roll church. That's like what I was dragged to when I was a kid.
Oh, did you watch the Righteous Gemstones on HBO? No, I've
heard about it though. It looks really funny.
Hey, you should check it out.
It just sounded like that what your experience was that show. Maybe it's too close to home though.
Yeah. Yeah. But Mormonism is so much crazier than I thought it was. And there's like, I love like a 3-hour long YouTube video of just somebody talking at you about something. So yeah, I've been down the Mormon hole is my thing lately.
Down the Mormon hole.
Yeah.
Down the Mormon hole.
No one draw that.
Oh my god. What about podcasts? Do you have like
podcasts? I'm in it's basketball right now, so I listen to a basketball podcast, and that's like every other day, so that takes up a lot of my time. But I also Chapo Trap House, do like the Get Myself Furious, listening to like political stuff, of course.
Okay.
Oh, I see. You like pain.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what a lot of my YouTube is also. Just like
V, what's your trash YouTube?
Oh my god. Okay,
like what's your guilty pleasure YouTube experience?
I think my number one guilty pleasure YouTube experience is internet drama, because it's so far removed from me. And it's like tabloids. And oh my god, I love it so much. I have like extensively researched Nico Cado, because I was like, how, why, and then tragic, but tragic question mark. And I think the mystery of like, you don't really know. And then I went down like the Onision rabbit hole, because I was like, what in the world? It's kind of dark actually, so I don't know.
I don't know that one.
And then I really like Strange Aeons because she goes specifically down the rabbit hole of fandom drama. So it's extremely niche and specific, but it's batshit crazy
What is
because
it called?
so her name is Strange Eons.
Oh, yep.
Yeah,
I know
and
her.
she's so cool too,
Yeah.
but like the way she covers it, it's so funny. It's almost like investigative journalism, but on fandom, which I love it because it's like so far removed from me, and I'm like, all right, this I can just have a good laugh. I feel like it's so to me, that's where I'm like, I like fiction will never beat reality because these are real people doing real things in the real world, and it's so insane. I would never come up with that on my own. Yeah,
Totally.
that's my YouTube trash.
Do you know Sarah Z?
Sarah Z?
I don't know. Sarah Z?
Yeah. She's similar to Strange Eons, where she was just like, talk about like some Tumblr drama from 10 years ago that I know nothing about.
I love that.
Artist call out videos where like different artists are beefing is also very funny, where they're like, there'll be like a whole video where they're talking about how this obscure Tumblr artist has been like stealing ideas or techniques or doing traceovers from this one. And I watch like a lot of internet debates. Like there's like just different political people on the internet that like it's not just that they're debating the two different sides, they're also saying like horrible things to each other because they're internet people, and they're just like cursing each other out, and they're arguing about whether the water's turning the frogs gay or whatever they're it's a very guilty pleasure. And I watch a lot of people who I very strongly disagree with, but I find them interesting to hear like why they think what they think. Then I've been on a gold hunting
gold
hunting and treasure hunting, metal detecting, magnet fishing, gold sniping in the river. They put on like wetsuits and they try to look in under rocks for gold pieces. I watch those. Primitive survival and hut building. I've been watching a lot of that, and then this is super dark, but I've been watching a lot of those police interview videos where they're like, "You'll never believe how in this investigation, this suspect who claims to be crazy begins to act sane as soon as the investigators leave the room," like that kind of thing.
Yeah, Jimmy Can't Swim has a bunch of those. Oh my God. I mean, I didn't want to say that because obviously all the podcasts I listen to, most of them, 95% is true crime.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm such a trope. I'm such a, it's like at this, like, I feel like 10 years ago when you're like, I listen to true crime, it's like, wow, like you're so cool. And now everybody does it. It's like, such a normie thing. But yeah, like these videos where they like analyze the body language and stuff, I'm so into it.
This is our little casual bit at the end of the podcast where we're talking about YouTube videos, and I feel right? this is what people really came here for.
Can I say one more? There's this guy, Watch Revivalist, where he finds like watches from like the 20s and takes them apart and like cleans them and puts them back together.
Oh my God! There's that dude that restores paintings. Oh my God, what is his name? He does these they're like these like ASMR painting restoration videos where like amazing. he'll just like fix these paintings, and it does at the end it does like the before and after, and you're like, it looks like a whole new painting. Holy shit! Those videos are. They're very relaxing. Like you can like go to bed. Oh, Bumgarter Restoration is the one. But anyway, that's
so funny.
That's our YouTube trash.
That's our YouTube trash segment. Thank you, Sam, for sharing with the world your personal YouTube trash taste.
Sure. I feel like the Watch Revivalist, that's not trash. That's cool.
No.
Yeah. I could go way trashier than that, but I'll leave it.
True.
Well, if you all want to connect with Sam, there's his socials in the description of the video below. Sam, is there anything that you want to plug before we leave the show?
Nah, just I don't have anything going on other than, I would say watch Merry Little Batman, but it's not Christmas time, so next year, keep that in mind.
It's a beautiful show.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really happy with the movie. It's so cool.
It's so darn cool. Well, with that, it's the end of this creative block. Sam, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Oh man, thanks for having me. You guys are awesome. So fun talking to you.
You're awesome, and it as always, it is a pleasure to meet up and catch up. And Mustard. Thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Ibuka for creating the short clips that we've been putting out.
Ibuka has also been doing the caricatures now, and Clemens is also doing the final thumbnails. So I'm so proud of them. They're so cool. If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. If you want to talk more about animation on the Discord, that's what we do, because we're obsessed like that. But you can also support us by interacting with our content. You can subscribe, you can comment, you can like. That really helps the algorithm push our content. So we really appreciate you guys doing this free little gesture of support. Click the link in the description of this episode for Patreon and for Sam's socials. Make sure that you read Sam's 3 comics on working as a storyboard artist on Regular Show, Infinity Train, and Apple and Onion. These are so amazing and such a great look into the animation process. I have been your host, V.
And I was Sean. Real quick, shout out to Tom Fulp, who front paged our first episode of the podcast on Newgrounds. Thank you for the support, and we're excited to break into a new community, or an old community, one that I have a lot of passion for from my younger years. So I'm glad that we're posting on this place that is made for and by animators. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.